Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rolling 20s. We are the show that has Lady Death as our co-pilot and Evil Ernie as our bombardier. I am Jeremy. You can subscribe to this show and several others in the MSP library at missionstarpodcast.com. You can like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and on Tumblr. Follow us on Twitter at the Rolling 20s. You can send us any fan mail, suggestions for the show, or hate mail at mspfreight@yahoo.com. The music you heard is by Machinae Supremacy. You can find more of their discography for free download at machinaesupremacy.com, as well as their latest couple of albums on amazon.com. This next panel that I hosted during the Great American Comic-Con in Las Vegas, Nevada at December 3rd and 4th at the Cashman Center. This was probably the most intimidating for me, and I don't mean intimidating in the fact that this man had a reputation of being a ballbuster. He was not a cruel man. It was just a case where I had not directly read his comics, although I was aware of the overall story of his characters. So I wanted to make sure I got it right. And I always knew that this man had an incredible amount of drive. I mean, he started his own comic company, Chaos Comics. He created a number of characters that are enduring. He doesn't fully own most of those characters right now, but he does own the characters to Lady Death. His name is Mr. Brian Pulido, currently the owner and founder of Coffin Comics. And Lady Death is one of those characters that even if you didn't know the name, during the late 90s, you probably saw it and didn't quite know what it was, and it sticks in your mind just because of both how simple and how striking the design of the character is. And I think you can credit the success of that character fully to the drive that Brian Pulido has. It is amazing. And he tells stories of what it was like creating those characters and the stories he wrote, and he also has some TV credits. And one thing I wasn't looking for, but he was very honest with, he actually has news about the future of Lady Death and multimedia that I hadn't heard anywhere before. So we actually got to break news during this panel. So I want you to grab your favorite cup of coffee or hot chocolate, sit back in a chair, lightly turn up your heavy metal music because you're going to want it in the background of this one. This man lives metal and rock and roll. This is Mr. Brian Pulido, and the panel is titled Lady Death and Brian Pulido, Past, Present, and Future. Enjoy. Okay, you guys are aware of this man's work, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of people who try to make a mark on the world, and often, we just kind of fall short. We end up in the ether out there when it comes to history. This guy's managed to create pop culture icons that are enduring. And this is the founder of Chaos Comics and the creator of a number of characters, including Evil Ernie, Purgatory, and Lady Death.
Yeah.
And this is Mr. Brian Pulido.
Why, thank you very much. Everything he's saying is true.
I mean, there's no denial that Chaos Comics as a whole has been influential on the comics, I guess you could say, biosphere. Okay. And which of the characters do you think has been the most influential in pop culture?
So out of those characters, that's an interesting question. I mean, please keep in mind that I didn't have that sort of an agenda. Mm-hmm. Particularly back then when I was creating those books and writing those books and publishing those books, I was just expressing myself and doing the books that I didn't see out there.
Okay.
So it was an initial trend of very, very dark characters, really pushing the premise of the anti-hero to the very edge. Some of our books actually featured villains, mm-hmm. and were able, like Evil Ernie, he sustained himself over, 10 years and 52 plus issues.
Right.
So which one, I guess Lady Death is the one that has the most influence, or
mm-hmm.
she's achieved an iconic status that even in our own household we consider separate from ourselves.
Right.
Like, there's myself, there's my wife, there's my household, and there's Lady Death. So,
do you have something you wanted to ask real quick?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Now, give a short synopsis of Lady Death, because it brings up a few images almost directly as to this ivory white woman and wearing very little, carrying a large sword that is sometimes on fire.
Yeah.
But a lot of people may not be aware of the story behind.
Well, I mean, very simply stated, Lady Death is the story of originally set in medieval times. It's about a girl named Hope who renounced her humanity by choice to go to hell and save her mother's soul from the devil. Mm-hmm. Very simply.
Okay.
And even 25 years later, here we are in the present, and she gets close, but she's still trying to save Mom. So through years of trials, tribulations, and adventures, misadventures, she forged herself into that alabaster goddess that you see, Lady Death.
Wow. All it takes is Lady Death, and some people just run.
For those of you in the ether, yeah, we're just scared one human being off. We won't have done our job until we've scared everyone off.
There have been so many comic book characters that have hit like multimedia and movies. Has Lady Death ever been optioned for film?
In truth, Lady Death has been an animated feature film that was made by ADV Films and was traveled direct-to-video around the world in 2005. And we have had about 15 options and development deals. However, about a year ago, we entered into a co-production deal with the producers of the TV show Vikings, a particular woman named Sherry Marsh, and we are in a certain stage of development of Lady Death as a television show to bring her to the marketplace.
Do you feel confident that this will be the way that it finally breaks through and hits celluloid?
I do. Yeah, and I think television as a chosen market as opposed to a feature film allows us to tell more episodic stories. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you really look at it, in this day and age, it's super difficult to get a film made that has an original kind of author's voice.
Right.
But I think, man, TV, you can do it. And so TV would allow us not only to do just one single 2-hour story, it would allow us to tell 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours over time, and to have the edge that Lady Death is known for. Mm-hmm. I mean, Lady Death is kind of an R-rated tone. So we do not think our target studio is ABC, NBC, CBS. We think it's cable, it's Netflix, it's Hulu.
You're thinking like AMC and
any
services.
Cable streaming.
Okay. See, I like where you're going with that because, I am a Marvelite by trade, which means I've watched all the Defenders TV shows up to this point.
Sure.
And I agree with you that when you have 12 hours to tell a story instead of maybe 2.5 at best, all of a sudden everybody has a role. The villains aren't just the reason why we started kicking their head in anymore. They actually become characters.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And again, Lady Death's story has been told over 25 years, and, culling it down to what element, are we going to present to people? It's... you could get a fuller explanation. And it bears a little more resemblance to how her stories are told, episodically with cliffhangers in comics, right? So TV has that kind of quality. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, I adore movies. Mm-hmm. But movies almost seem like frequently they're an audition for like a roller coaster ride or an attraction, whereas you get a more immersive experience these days in television. I'm a Walking Dead fan. I'm a fan. Right now I'm enjoying Westworld on HBO. I have to go back to Los Angeles, which means I don't have access to HBO on Sunday night. So all of a sudden I have to stab my Facebook and make sure it tells me nothing for about 24 hours. I understand. Yeah, so that is a chosen medium, I think is a really good match. Yeah. What if there were any stories of Lady Death that have already been written you think could be adapted to a TV show? Which would it be? Well, that's an interesting question, and that is the quandary. And that is exactly what we're deciding. Okay. So we're deciding... So it's beyond a green light phase. You guys are in the middle of actually working on the show? Well, the way it works is we're developing what the story would be like, such that we would then pitch it to the prospective studios. I see. So we're actually in the formative stage. It has taken a period of time to get the right writers that have the ability to get a show made together. So, so you actually caught us quite literally at that formative stage where we believe between now and the end of January, we will wrestle with that very quandary. It sounds like somebody strangling chihuahuas across the hall. All right, and... gobble, 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 gobble. See, another thing about me is I am a huge wrestling fan, professional wrestling. Sure. I've had my hand in publishing professional wrestling. That's the thing I found out looking it up. You did adaptations of
Mankind, The Undertaker, and Stone Cold Steve Austin for comic books.
And the list goes on, actually. Yeah,
I'm sure there was more. Those were the three.
The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Undertaker we did a lot with.
Did you have to interact a lot with these guys?
Oh yeah, it was a great, man. If you're a wrestling fan, you would have loved the life that we were living at the time, because we were fans of that era, and we hung out with those guys, we attended events, we socialized with them. I became friends with Mick Foley, very nice man. We hung out with Taker. We hosted events that they attended in Chicago and San Diego Comic-Con.
Damn.
So yeah, and all the wrestlers were involved in their story.
Well, it sounds like the pages could have been ruined by the body oil just wandering through your office.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I mean, this is tangential to that. So we hosted Paul Bearer and China, rest in peace, and Taker. But we have offices in Scottsdale, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And before we started working with WWE, which was WWF at the time, we were visited by Ultimate Warrior.
Really?
Rest in peace. Who also, this was before he came out with his own comic. He was we had a discussion about the potential of making his comic. And, again, rest in peace, Ultimate. But he was like really super far out. So he was a little too far out for us to think of like, okay, how are we going to work on a daily basis with Ultimate? Because he was a really intense guy.
If I can tangent that just a minute, I've been a wrestling fan since he came in. He was my draw into it when, you have this psychotic thing that looks like a gigantic He-Man doll running down the aisle.
Yeah.
It grabs your attention. But I did notice that in rewatching some of his promos, it didn't sound like he was speaking so much as he was describing the latest heavy metal album cover he had seen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was...
If I can, the spaceships from heaven will come down, Hulk Hogan, and take your soul up into the stratosphere, and you will know you have been defeated. It's... Wow, crack is bad.
Dude, that's how we talked when you sat in a meeting. It was
Seriously?
the same thing. Yeah, it was like, okay, this is really far out, man. Like, at what point do we, sit down and, figure out a deal on what we're going to do?
Did you see his last promo?
I can't say I have.
Oh, it was a little bit sad because he had just come to get... I guess he and Vince McMahon had finally made up. There was no more animosity.
Yeah.
He was at WrestleMania. He was just inducted in the Hall of Fame. The Raw after WrestleMania, he cut a long promo saying that his time was nearly over and all of us were warriors. Everybody had the paper mask to take home. And he passed away 2 days later.
Yes.
Like he knew the time to do his exit.
That was a trip.
Interview.
Yeah. No, I don't remember the promo, but I remember that era, and I was watching what was occurring. Yeah, that was kind of intense.
It was bizarre.
It was bizarre.
In a single
I agree.
word.
Because I kind of thought he was going to get brought back into the fold.
It seemed like he was building to it.
Yeah, and then it was just sudden. Yeah.
Sorry, geeking a bit.
Pop culture geek out. I was involved with the wrestling, and I enjoyed it thoroughly, and yeah, what could you say? I mean, hanging out with all those guys. It was funny, because I would be, anything I had to say to Taker when we're both standing, I'd always be like... He's immense. Yeah, he was immense. Mick Foley was just great. I never got to meet The Rock, which was a shame, but I did get to meet China several times. And, of course, Paul Bearer. Again, rest in peace. That was cool.
What was it like? I got to ask about Paul Bearer, because when you see him on TV, he's always talking in that high falsetto. It sounds like somebody had actively snipped off his gonads right before he went on TV.
Well, that was definitely, that was his act.
Right. But what was he like as an actual person? Was he quieter than that?
Yeah, he actually was very low-key, very normal would be the word that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. And, Paul Bearer was a character he played, and... he was super low-key. I mean, when he was off, he was off. Some people are bigger than life all the time. Not him. He was super low-key when he was off.
Well, when you're trying to take all these larger-than-life personas that rely on television or live action as a storytelling medium, how do you hone that down to a comic book panel?
It translates super perfectly, because the wrestlers are bigger than life. The storylines are very bombastic. It made perfect sense. I mean, actually, I was invited by the head of the story development at WWF to join or contribute to the wrestling storylines.
They wanted you to be in creative.
Yeah, but again, more like dedicated to what I was doing. So I considered that an honor, because I considered, okay, wow, maybe we're really getting it. So, yeah. No, it was easy. It was just made perfect sense. I mean, some things would be hard. Can you imagine, I don't know, what would be the impossible comic book adaptation? Something that just shouldn't be a comic, but that makes perfect sense.
It shouldn't be a comic. Fight against the
Constitution. Okay, there you go. Right.
I was going against the Young and the Restless.
Perfect. The Young and the Restless. Right. Whereas, it was super easy. easy. What was kind of fun too, obviously, is now we can take him out of the ring. So, for example, with The Rock, we recast him as a James Bond-like character.
Okay.
So that made sense. And with Taker, we could take that image and we made him the guardian of a place called Stygian, which was kind of like hell, and all the activities that would happen there.
So the storylines are basically, what if these guys never had an off?
What if they never had it off, and what if the budget was unlimited, and you could do whatever you want, and everything wasn't. We actually never tie to anything to the wrestling ring.
Okay.
With Taker, we would have like this Stygian gladiator arena that was like a ring, but other than that, yeah, we just kind of take off from there.
Wow.
We didn't have too many prime directives at the time from WWF either. They basically said just be true. And what we would do is we would pitch them ideas. Like we had made the deal, we had the deal for the overall license, and we agreed, okay, these characters are going to be, we're going to tell stories about these characters, and here's how we would do it. And usually we just got green lights on everything.
It must have been good to have that much freedom overall. I mean, they trusted you as an artist, obviously.
It was pretty amazing. I mean, and throughout my 25-year career, when I've dipped into other stuff, like I've written Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Chucky, when I've written all this stuff, out of my entire history, I've only had the request of one scene being rewritten. So I consider it a complete non-religious blessing. Because when the one scene I had to rewrite for Friday the 13th, I knew it would happen because I personally was testing what would New Line's limit be. So I put a scene in there just to see the limit. And it was like, so, okay, that was too much.
And you guys know he's a director?
That's true. I've been lucky enough to direct some music videos and even a feature film that was on every channel in the world. I directed a movie called The Grave, starring Tony Todd, you may know as Candyman, and Bill Moseley, and we had Amanda Wyss. I mean, I don't think it was War and Peace. Right now, my movie, The Graves, has 12% on Rotten Tomatoes. I got nowhere to go but up.
Well,
I think it would be at least a 13.
You gotta have at least some kind of forceful personality because you
gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, well, well, I mean, you've created your own comic company, you've created your own comic characters, and you've been a director, which is trying to take the creative direction of like 20 different people and hone it down to a single darn little point.
I had a little previous experience because I graduated NYU Film School in 1985. Okay. And I then worked in the film business, and I worked predominantly as what's called an assistant director. So I kind of, it's very easy for me to tell 65 people what to do all the time. So it was fine. So when it came to directing, and I've directed a bunch of music videos as well, it really comes naturally for me telling people what to do. I could turn it on, I could turn it off, but yeah.
Do you think it's just one of those things you're made for, or did the school actually tell you how to do it?
I think I always had some sort of leadership ability, I guess at some level, because even back in film school, you kind of have to rally the troops. And I don't, maybe in my regular life I don't walk around being that forceful, but when it's time to rally the troops and, go on a mission, I'm all about it. And I'm very interested in building the structures in place to sufficiently to pull it off. And another element of what we do, we're co-owners, my wife and I, and another couple, Mike and Teresita Oliveras, we are co-owners of Tucson Comic-Con. Okay. So that just occurred, and we get about 10,000 through the door, and I'm the managing partner, so I kind of build the structure, and where all the volunteers go. I oversee the teams that oversee it occurring. So yeah, I guess that's natural.
Okay. Do you have any kids?
By choice, my wife and I never had children.
Okay, I'm taking this forceful personality, imagining what would happen if I applied that to my kids, and all of a sudden I have this image of them crawling up the gates and trying to, knock me off the top of the wall.
I would, if I had kids though, man, I'd have pretty high expectations. I'd be like, you gotta have I would be that sucky dad. You have to get high grades. There's no way around it. You have to get an education. No way around. You're not allowed to do.
Strict, huh?
I'd probably kind of be loosely strict. I'd kind of like guide them, but yeah, there'd be no. I think so. My folks were really, permissive wouldn't be the word. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and it was a big deal. Came from a poor family, and it was a really big deal. And at least I had the wherewithal to understand that, for me to go to New York University, being a poor kid from like Long Branch, New Jersey, I just took it upon myself that I was getting good grades. I was going to make it their investment.
You were focused. That's good. You're focused.
I was really focused, so I did pretty good, and Yeah.
I went the other way. I married a 6-foot Irish redhead.
There you go.
Every once in a while, she gets angry. I hear the words "redhead smash." I wake up about 3 hours later.
There you go. Well, when I went to college, I had a buddy, and you might have friends and contemporaries in college who weren't. He wasn't an overachiever. It took him like 6 years to get through NYU, and he probably had a C- average, and he was the sweetest guy on earth. Kind of reminded me of Gilligan of Gilligan's Island. So he kind of had that vibe. You always want to hang out with him. Mm-hmm. But his wife was like the vice president of like a whole network of banks. Oh. So she was the type A, he was the super chill house husband, and it's something that still works to this day. He doesn't work, he's like keeping an eye on things. They don't even have kids, right? Like maybe he's keeping an eye on a cat. That's his life. That's his life.
You have a media company, Mischief Maker Studios?
We do. So Mischief Maker Studios is our motion picture company or our media company, and it is in partnership with the producers of Vikings to produce Lady Death. Also, another property we have called La Muerta. So yeah, all of our entertainment activity happens through Mischief Maker Studios.
So then some of your properties must have been the ones I read about. There was a generalistic idea that you have the rights to about 10 comic book companies in there, but I couldn't find a list as to what they were.
I know, you have to be specific, but that sounds crazy.
I was looking at his success because, it's like DC hasn't even been able to put out 10 frickin' shows yet.
Oh yeah, we haven't. I mean, the main thing that we got produced was the Lady Death animated feature film, and now we're just back in the saddle looking at entertainment.
Okay.
And making a concerted effort to get into that space.
Are any of the other properties hoping to land in multimedia? Because Evil Ernie as a TV show, it seems like we've seen something along those lines before.
I would love it, but...
I was going to ask you that. You're going to cartoon.
Well, so the truth is, I am permanently separated from all those characters. In August of 2002, Chaos Comics had a business-based bankruptcy, and characters other than Lady Death were assets of Chaos Comics.
Oh,
so when it folded, it was ultimately purchased out by others, and they operate it, and we have no meaningful contact. So if it were to happen, I am not currently involved.
Okay. What is Lara Croft Revisioned?
So, oh my gosh, let's see. There was a game portal.
Okay.
And to attract eyeballs onto this game portal, they commissioned a group of writers to write these short Lara Croft storylines. And I was lucky enough to write 3 of them, actually.
3 of them. I read 2. 3.
Did I do 3? Okay, 2.
Look, half my information came off of different websites, blogs, and Wikipedia. I will admit, there are probably gaps in here.
So yeah, I got a chance to write 2, sorry. The third wasn't made, but it was a cool idea. The third one that wasn't made was called Lara Croft Zombie Slayer. It was a cool idea, but I got to write a Lara Croft storyline where it was a comedy. That was Lara Croft and the Curse of the Aztec Mummy.
Okay.
And what was fun about that was the first ever approved use of Lara in a comedy. And then the other one that we did was, the other Lara Croft was kind of a riff on Johnny Quest. Was it Johnny? Yeah, Johnny Quest, yeah. Right.
No, I mean, I laugh not because I can't see it. The two are incredibly similar in tone. But there's just something about the idea of Lara Croft running along and yelling for Haji and her doctor father, it creates a bit of a disconnect for me.
See it right there?
Sorry?
I'm asking him if he has a breastband.
It's right on right there. I don't know if it's the right color.
I just needed to see it.
Okay, your wristband?
Sir, you need a wristband to be in the show, sir. If not, please, so you have to step out. Okay, we'll call in-house security.
Let me see. You're winner of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund's Defender of Liberty Award.
Yes.
It was what First Amendment issues were you fighting on behalf of?
Yeah, I wouldn't look at myself as a winner of anything, but I think what it did is it memorialized a period of time where in the mid-90s in comics, there was a lot of First Amendment rights pushback, meaning comic shops would be selling material that was being considered adult. Okay. And sometimes... Let me try to dial it back and get specific. So in Oklahoma, there was a comic shop that happened to be nearby a school. And there was material that was considered adult, and there was an accusation that comic shop sold adult material to a child. and that shop instantaneously was shut down, and the person lost their store, and that was just on the accusation, long before it ever could go to trial.
Okay.
So when we saw that, we thought that was wrong fundamentally, and we founded a convention that occurred in Oklahoma later that year called Defense Con, and we raised money sufficient to begin to help that person with their legal battle. And what I didn't like was the idea that, whether it was proven or not, that ruined that comic shop's life.
Right.
And so for a period of time, particularly like really focused 3 years, we did a lot in terms of bringing awareness to the plight of the smaller store that would get accused of something and get shut down before it even had a chance to go to trial. The impact was instantaneous. Just the accusation would destroy something. And I think what CBLDF did was kind of recognize our contribution to bringing attention to that particular topic.
Did you ever find out what book they supposedly sold?
I don't recall what it was.
Okay.
I don't remember. I actually think it was an anime, and it might have been kind of like dicey because some of it is, and it may or may not have gotten into the wrong hand. I get it, but just the accusation. It's interesting. So when there's pictures and words working together, it has one impact. But if you have a novel, let's say, even Anne Rice has written erotic vampire fiction, they're just less likely to get accused, whereas for that time in the 90s, especially the comics world, was really getting accused a lot. And I had a beef with that.
Yeah. Do you think maybe it was a time period? Because I remember comics through the early to mid 90s. Costumes got smaller, pouches got larger, and it seemed like a lot of story was a little bit submerged underneath a lot of extreme visuals.
Well, there's some of that too, but I mean, this topic still remains, the whole pushback on censorship, so hence, that's the value of having the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund.
Right.
Yeah, so again, I wouldn't say I won anything, it was more like kind of they recognized what myself and the group that I'd worked with, my Chaos Comics posse, like we just rolled in and said,
Right, so you were presented it, awarded it, it's not like you lobbied for it or anything like that.
Not at all.
Okay. But you are on the board of directors of the Hero Initiative?
I am.
And that's a nonprofit that helps creators in need, right?
Yeah, so the Hero Initiative is a 501c3 not-for-profit corporation that raises money for comic book veterans in need.
Okay.
That's the whole story. So we raise and disperse funds. So that might be things. So comic book creators that you love and adore, and you may not know them, you may know their work. But they might fall into hard times, they might fall out of favor, they may stop working. We're a safety net that kind of keeps an eye on the men and women who kind of fallen on hard times. And through the years we've dispersed, I think it's something like $400,000 we've raised and dispersed. And we've done everything from bury people, give people a couple $100 to get a car registered. We did cataract surgery for Gene Colan, so we've done that kind of work. And for me, the reason I do that is really simple. It's I'm a fan of comics. I have been since I was a child. I know on my dying breath I will love and adore comics. I have no cynicism about it. I love it. Separate from what I do, I have my own fandom. I collect comics, and it's bringing me a lot of joy. I know that when I was younger, probably like a lot of you guys and gals, I felt different. I felt a little apart from things, and this made me feel like I was part of something.
Yes.
And so I'll always appreciate that, and so I'm happy to give back to the people who gave me that kind of joy.
Are you aware of any creators right now who are requiring assistance, or are you not?
I'm not particularly aware of that, but I'll explain to you why. There's two elements of Hero Initiative. It's the fundraising portion and then the fund disbursement.
Okay.
So I work closely with our president, and in a sense, I'm his. Maybe this isn't his words, my words. Consigliere, confidant. When he's shaping things and looking at things, and then also I help provide and support ideas that help fundraising.
Okay.
There's a whole other group on disbursement. It's usually one generation later than us guys, and the cases go to them, and they disperse, or they see what's going on, they identify it, and they disperse it. And when that occurs, there's two types of some folks are aware and go public with that concern, and some people choose to be private. So we don't disclose.
Okay.
So yeah, I may just simply be unaware of some things that are going on, and then sometimes they will be disclosed. In just this second, I don't know.
So it sounds like the primary amount of your creative energy right now is in the hopes of the Lady Death show? Are you producing?
My day-to-day energy, it's not unlike Kirkman, who's, successful to a factor of 1,000 times. You ask Kirkman what he worries about day to day. It's just the comic book Walking Dead. So what I am concerned about on a daily basis is the comic books that I'm producing. And the television and the ancillary stuff like our deals with Sideshow, they're important, but I know that my job, my function is to keep the stories cool, keep rolling out new stuff, and I love doing new stuff. We have a new property, La Muerta, that's achieved some success in the marketplace as well. I know that I'm doing some spin-off books this year, so I also have a pretty serious capacity, so the idea that we're working on television stuff, it's another quiver in the bow. It's part of the portfolio of activity.
Right. So
not the most important.
Right. Let me ask about La Muerta particularly.
Sure.
That's new to me.
Yeah.
What's the storyline behind it?
So La Muerta is almost like a Mexican-American version of something like The Crow meets the movie Death Wish, and it occurs on the holiday Day of the Dead. Specifically, it is about a Mexican-American woman named Maria Diaz who is returning from Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. She's a U.S. soldier, and she is returning on that holiday, Day of the Dead. And she's to be reunited with her family.
Okay.
But her fraternal twin brother has fallen in with an occult-leaning crime cartel, a bit of a bad group. And later that night, when the family is reunited and celebrating, the bad guys think that the whole family is in on it. Back up a minute. The fraternal twin brother has stolen a little money.
Oh.
So later when they see the family celebrating, they kind of think the family's just living large on it all. They come in and they wipe everybody out. 8 months later, Maria wakes up out of a coma and she learns her family's dead and gone. So she goes and she tries to get some justice from the police, the politicians, even in her church, but they're all in on it somehow. They all have a connection to the crime cartel.
Wow.
So, with nowhere else to turn, and aided by the mysterious Faustina, she decides to dismantle this group. And she's just a regular woman with no superpowers. So, and that is her story. We have actually copies of it for sale right at my booth. And people have really enjoyed it. And it's really seeped in Mexican-American culture.
Right.
Narcocultura, Catarina.
What country is it based in?
It's in an imagined Los Angeles that kind of has Gothic overtones.
All right.
Present day.
What other series are you producing right now?
Let's see here. So we had the first couple. We do comics in chapters. So upcoming, we also publish frequently through Kickstarter, using Kickstarter as a publishing model. Famously, we've done 7 Kickstarters, and so let's see here. We've just shipped Lady Death Zodiac, which is a art and text book of the Zodiac seen through a pagan eyes of Lady Death. That just came out. And we are delivering right now Lady Death Oblivion Kiss, which was a massive Kickstarter.
I read about that one. I remember that coming through my feed.
And then I think it's in late February, early March. Our next Lady Death storyline is called Merciless Onslaught, and that will be premiering through Kickstarter. And then in May and June, we're doing the next chapter of La Muerta, currently untitled. However, featuring another new character named Loco, who was a luchador assassin. So he's an interesting... That's not even the bad guy. The bad guy's like even...
Right.
It's not the bad... That's a good guy. And then there's going to be a spin-off character. I don't know exactly when we're going to schedule it, but in the summer, we introduced a character as an adversary for Lady Death named Hell Witch. And she has achieved a certain level of interest and popularity among fans. And so we have a chapter coming up that just tells her story. So it's called Hell Witch Hellborn for next summer. So Hell Witch Hellborn. That's R-rated, over the top. As much as Lady Death is R-rated, there's just certain things we wouldn't do with the character, but Hell Witch is further out. It's a little more intense.
I'm sitting here watching you. You have no piece of paper in front of you. You have all that just right up in your mind.
Holler at your boy.
That's amazing.
I'd wait.
Does anybody have any questions for the man? Wow, apparently we're telling good stories up here.
Yeah, so it's back at our booth. When I'm done, you can swing by and grab it.
Have you had any interactions with the larger companies? Because I know you're self-produced, but sometimes it seems like there might be crossovers or Somebody.
I have been lucky enough. Let's see. I wrote for Marvel Comics. I wrote the Supernaturals, where they gave me an open ticket to kind of write what I wanted. I submitted it and I did it. Mm-hmm. My orientation, I just don't have any interest in it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 25 years in, and when I grew up, I love and adore and read Marvel and DC comics and other comics, but I never aspired to write for them because I just never aspired for it. I just like telling my own stories.
Right.
And I also, for me, simply to write a story isn't enough. I like publishing it. I like choosing the artist. I like working on the layouts. That whole three-dimensional experience, when I get to do it that way, you get a more authentic expression. And I feel like when that has occurred, it's rewarded. Mm-hmm. You know, the success of the Kickstarters and, you know, going back into publishing, when it's all of it, it's an authentic expression. When it's just writing, and I've done that for others, it's just not the whole thing for me. So as much as, you know, I have friends in all Marvel, DC artists, writers, and stuff like that, and they're like, and people know famously I love Captain America, and I've read Captain America since every single one of you were born. I've read Captain America monthly since July of 1974 without fail. And but I never aspired to write Cap. So, I mean, I you know, as a fan, I just love Cap. Telling my story. The guys I admired, probably most famously, is I really admire Stephen King. He gets to wake up in the morning, he gets to write whatever he wants to write, and then he moves on. And so that's more my model as opposed to when I grew up, I want to write Avengers. Just not on my radar at all.
That's fair enough. When reading your curriculum vitae, I was curious if anyone had even offered you a position.
This is also absolutely true. Something like 97, 98, I was actually offered to be publisher of Marvel Comics.
Publisher?
Yeah, I am not exaggerating. Yeah, and I turned it down because I definitely didn't think I was the right person. They thought I might have been the right person, but I know I wasn't the right person for it. Because again, I kind of go to the tune of my own drummer. Mm-hmm. Now, there was a couple years of turmoil in Marvel, and then they got the right guys. They got Bill Jemas and Joe Quesada, and they really were the right guys at the right time. I would not have been that guy. I knew that. Okay. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be offered it.
Is it just because of your creative style that you think you wouldn't have been the right guy, or
absolutely? Yeah, because I just like doing my own thing. I just like doing my own thing. Yes, my dear.
Would you ever consider acting?
Do you think I should?
No.
I don't know. I think if I could do it all over again, I might sing for a rock band. That
you like that?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Writer, singer, or?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be in a metal band, you know.
What would you call it?
What would I call my metal band? Okay, I had an idea. I was.
I figured you had one.
I think a goofy idea for a metal band would be Triceratops. Now, what if I've had some goofy names. I don't know what my real name for a metal band would be. I don't know. I know I have, like we all do, right? Writers and stuff. You have these ideas. I know that I wanted to have a rock cover band, and I had a very specific bandwidth of American rock I wanted to play. Mm-hmm. Songs like Mississippi Queen, I wanted to play Bad Company, and I wanted to play some kind of British glam, The Sweet, Fox on the Run, whatever, dude. You know how it goes. I don't know. I would try to get like the most brutal metal name possible. Something like that. Like you just name yourself like Black. That's it. It's like the sum total of everything, you know?
I can just see you coming in. What are you going to call it? You don't say anything. You just hold up a black piece of paper.
Right, that's it.
All it is.
That's it. I was toying with a friend, and we were thinking about forming, since we have Coffin Comics, we were going to form like a stoner rock band called Coffin. And our objective would be to play 3-minute songs that only had 3 notes. You know, just like... If you know any kind of stoner rock, it's kind of like that Black Sabbath-y slowed down.
Okay, I had to reframe that in my mind. When you said a 3-minute song, it's only 3 notes, I started thinking about wrestling theme music again.
Oh, there you go. Right. Exactly. Yeah, on the whole opposite end of the spectrum would be songs like by the Ramones, which is like a minute or so. Yeah, or even like, you know, good Misfits song, Vampira, is like 1 minute and 29 seconds.
I mean, it sounds like you've taken every personal opportunity. Has anybody ever offered you anything that you wish you'd taken up on?
I was offered, when I was a kid, I used to work in, I don't really spend a lot of time going down those paths.
Right.
But I was offered, I worked on the film Batteries Not Included when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, and I worked on a lot of New York film production. I worked on Batteries Not Included, I worked on the movie Bright Lights, Big City, and I worked on like the whole movie. Like on Batteries Not Included, I was on it for over a year. because I worked in locations. I worked in everything. In Bright Lights, Big City, I was what's called the office production assistant, and then I worked the set. But when I worked on Batteries Not Included, I went back to, worked in New York, but then I went back to Los Angeles, and I saw all the big sets and stuff, and I was offered the opportunity to become their office production assistant. And however, I was young. However, that included everyone brought their dogs in, you'd have to clean up the dog do. And I wouldn't do it. But maybe, what if I did? What if I acquiesced and picked up the dog do? Maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't really spend too much time on that kind of thinking.
No, you're definitely not a backwards individual. You definitely always seem to me to be someone moving towards the whatever's in front of him.
Yeah, and I chose my path and I kind of accept it. And I kind of think I wake up in the morning and it's up to me to make it go.
Right.
So yeah, it's the word, not playing well with others isn't the right way, but I kind of just I'm going my own path. And the folks who want to join the path, they're welcome, and I think you could speak to them. They find it's fun and collaborative and stuff, but I know I'm heading this way.
Yeah, I would call you a directed individual.
There you go. I'll take that.
Not solitary, but you've got your role. If people choose to follow the train, that's good. If they choose not to, whatever.
That's cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that.
All right. Any other questions? All right, I want to thank you for stopping by. The creator of Chaos Comics, Mr. Brian Pulido.
Thank you very much. You've been great. I've been Brian Pulido. Please visit me on my booth. Stay out of trouble. I like your skull shirt. It reminds me of Evil Ernie's guts. Do you know my character, Evil Ernie? If you don't, you'd love him. Do you think he'd love me?
I think he'd be right.
It's about an undead teenage psychotic who controls the dead. And over the course of... That's what I'm saying. Hello?
Sounds like you. What do you do in your spare time?
At the end of 52 issues, he successfully launches World War III and annihilates the entire universe. So you might like that. I don't mean to generalize, but I'm just saying. Thanks, folks. Have a good one.
See, I apologize for the slight humming sound you heard. There's something about Mr. Pulido's energy, apparently, that creates a little bit of feedback in the microphones, and I can't stop it. But you can understand why I like the guy. He has this way of bringing out the best in everything he does. So there are still more panels to come. Enjoy your holiday season. Thank you very much. I am Jeremy. Don't jerk and drive. Take care.